SMT Nation, we back, and this is going to be an interesting video. A couple of things out of Dish, and then also, I guess we'll say it's more like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T type article here as well. All right, let's first start by letting you guys know all the articles used in today's video will be in the description, so you guys can refer to that. Read those after, I don't know, as reference, whatever. Starting first with the Dish story, or I should say Dish story number one. Dish would be expected to walk away from T-Mobile's 800 megahertz spectrum. All right. So for those that don't know, this spectrum is actually it's band 26 from Sprint. All right. And with the whole T-Mobile and Sprint merger, we know Dish comes in as the fourth player to replace Sprint. They're at a huge disadvantage. They don't have their own network, so they have to build it from scratch. And obviously, you need assets, you need resources, you need spectrum, you need tower sites, all those things which Dish was, you know, able to use through the merger deal, concessions, the divesting from T-Mobile, and the whole Sprint, transaction. This 800 megahertz was made available to Dish to purchase if they so choose. Now, the money in terms of the value of it is 3.59 billion. That's what Dish would have to pay for the 800 megahertz spectrum licenses, which are nationwide. This is a low band spectrum frequency that reaches really far, and it would help them a lot. In fact, it makes a lot of sense for them to need this, use this, buy this. But capital, raising the money to make this kind of a purchase, Dish just simply doesn't have it. And they have a very frugal, tight, Charlie Ergen, their owner, operator, president, primary shareholder, however you want to look at him. It doesn't look like he wants to pay for it. They can't afford it. So a $72 million fee would be assessed as a penalty should they not purchase that spectrum. And I don't know. It makes sense for them to want it and use it. I just think because they're unable to raise the capital, they've got a lot of money going into actually building tower sites. They're building by the thousands. I've seen them, essentially covering the city of Cleveland and launching in these markets with the whole like Project Genesis Boost Infinite, which we'll get to more in a second with another story. But in order for them to create real capacity, they're going to have to really build out a tighter grid where the AWS spectrum shines. We're talking about 1700, 2100 megahertz frequency, and those licenses they have there are much deeper in terms of bandwidth. They can create more capacity. And we've seen in some places their low band is kind of skimpy. We've seen them with like 10 by 10, megahertz on the downlink and uplink for the N71, the 600 megahertz. They could use the 800, but they just doesn't look like they can shell out the money. That's going to be troublesome. Either way, building out the network and tower sites, building on an AWS grid, you know, there's just nothing cheap about this. This is a daunting task. We must remind ourselves of that. And that's why a lot of people, I think, are down on Dish. What they're trying to do is very difficult. I mean, think about it. How long did it take Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile to get national? You know what I mean? That's no easy task. So this is an interesting development. We'll see if anything changes. But for now, this gives you the impression, at least me, this gives me the impression they're going to pass on the 800 megahertz spectrum at that value of 3.59 billion and probably end up just paying that fee to walk away from the spectrum and not even pay T-Mobile the money, in the deal. Well, again, this is something I'll talk more about at a later time if it changes, but if not, just assume that that's the situation. Next story, Dish launches sign-up page for Boost Infinite. All right, another thing about Dish here is their postpaid brand, Boost Infinite, which essentially has been in beta. We've seen it launching in cities and people can sign up online and, buy a Galaxy S22 and, they've got a hotspot and a tablet coming and all this other stuff. Dish, I guess, has a sign up page now, right? So this is cool. And then a couple of bits and pieces of information here. It's going to be running on Dish Native, obviously. And then also the roaming agreements that they have with AT&T and T-Mobile. Now, I would want to kind of know how this is going to be set up. All right, it says, quote, the power of the 5G networks. Does that mean you're connected to Dish, AT&T, and T-Mobile all at the same time, meaning it'll connect to whatever is available if one isn't available? So, like, for example, Dish Native is there. Boom, you connect to that. No Dish Native. Next, you you go to AT&T. maybe AT&T is not available and it moves over to T-Mobile. Is that how it's going to work? Is it like some magical SIM card access? That'd be kind of cool, right? Automatically switch to the best network or something, or the most available network, I suppose. I don't know. We'll see. We'll probably find out more when we actually get a testing line. We can get on this and give it a go. They've got the Cleveland area pretty covered, so I'd be on Dish like probably 90% of the time. But again, it's something that I'm going to wait and withhold my, evaluation until I actually test it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and link this, and you guys can check out the Boost Infinite page, sign up for it, see if it's available, and you guys can make your orders. All right, if you're interested. All right, next story, last story. Verizon counts 5.1 million first responder subs. AT&T 3.7 million. All right, so this is interesting. AT&T with the FirstNet contract has really made huge coverage headwinds. It's a completely unrecognizable national network. Every time AT&T goes up to upgrade tower sites, they obviously do so with the Band 14 through the FirstNet contract, and they're connecting more and more agency and first responder, individuals. All right, so now at 3.7 million connections, they've essentially done this just over the course of the last handful of years, which, if you think about it, Verizon has been known as the first responder network for the better part of the last couple of decades. So the fact that AT&T has really closed that gap is pretty impressive. And the way you do that is with reliability, dependability, and availability. And that's what AT&T has been able to do with the FirstNet core on the AT&T network. According to AT&T, they said last summer that the network was 90% complete. I think they're saying that they're over 98% complete now. So this is no small task, what has happened. But hey, they're paid to do it. It's part of the contract. The nice thing is that AT&T customers have been absolute beneficiaries of the Band 14 build. Every time they go up those towers and add Band 14, they've added Band 30, they've added Band 29, they've done modernizations, they've added C-band. They've put up all these different assets and hardware, radio gear, and upgraded backhaul, and all of this, and it's just made their network just that much better. It's phenomenal here in the state of Ohio. I can tell you guys, if you qualify for a FirstNet line, I highly recommend giving it a shot just to see what it's about. It's definitely a great option. The preemption, the priority, it's great. The hotspot allowance and all it's really good. Now, in terms of the numbers itself, the thing about Roger Entner chiming in here, we've been following this for a while. T-Mobile came in and said that they were going to do this new first responder QCI type deal, right? Giving first responders data priority on their network. It goes to show you that, like, even with that, when you have a dedicated network core like FirstNet and Verizon with this enormous network nationwide, that even till today, even with FirstNet, a lot of first responders stick with Verizon. Some of them try FirstNet and end up leaving and churn, right? And go back to Verizon. We've seen that happen. It's really all about reliability. Now, I'm not here to put T-Mobile down. It's one of those things where this is hard ground to break. It's really tough to do. In fact, just giving first responders lines priority is probably not enough, to make first responders have true faith in the T-Mobile network. Because look, even with AT&T closing the gap, there's still over 5 million accounts on FirstNet for Verizon, the front line. And AT&T at 3.7 million. Clearly, they've closed the gap, but I don't know. I want to ask you guys this. Question number one: do you think AT&T will catch Verizon in these first responder accounts? Do you think that they pass them eventually at some point? I think that's interesting to consider. And also, do you think that T-Mobile might have a chance in maybe getting some of these accounts? Do you guys think that what they've done with the network with their improvements has been enough to maybe get people to give it a shot on the first responder side of things? Interesting. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So sound off in the comment section on this piece. Tell me about what you think of Boost Infinite if you're interested in it, and what you think about that story. And then the last thing about the 800 megahertz, again, it's disappointing. They could have definitely used it, but the capital, man, it's just a lot of money that they really don't have. They got some senior notes they got to pay pretty soon, too. I think that's approaching March of 2023 or something. All right. You guys go ahead. You all the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard. Sound off in that comment section. Like, share, subscribe for more, and turn on that bell notification icon to never miss an upload. Links in the description for my Twitter handle, my Gmail address for business inquiries, and my Patreon page is there if you want to support us and get early access to content and exclusive videos not found anywhere else. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Peace.